Oh my goodness! We are officially back with the podcast Love Unconditioned. Officially back onto, what is it, episode 2. So excited. I have been receiving such good feedback about the podcast, and it's given me such motivation to just continue and really just be aware of the things that we go through on a daily basis. You know, like we said in the previous episode, around these things that society is wanting us to be, and just the dangers of trying to fit in. My goodness, it gets so tiring. So before we jump into episode 2, officially chapter 1 though, so let's just put that out there. Let's do a brief recap of what we unpacked in our introduction slash first episode. So I would have shared my personal struggle with self-diagnosis. There's so many times where I have personally, wondered what is wrong with me. So if there's maybe like a pimple, or I can't focus, I have now I've got ADHD, or this is wrong, I'm feeling under the weather, am I depressed? I can't commit to tasks and those types of things. Am I chronically lazy? It just gets incredibly tiring. But validation seeking I also touched on, and just my personal struggle with that. Overcoming shame and embracing my unique self. People have been talking about the comment that I made about my braai. In fact, I'm wondering, what is the English word of braai? That would be quite interesting. And really just embracing those parts of ourselves that we loathe, that we dislike, and really just the power of self-love, and embracing that, what the benefits of those really, really are. And then we would have touched a little bit on, our future podcast topics. I know I promised like a special guest. I'm still wondering who that special guest is going to be. But anyway, welcome officially to our episode 2, The Unconditional Within. And here we are really just going to be exploring the origins. Funny enough, I found such interesting philosophies on self-love. So the objective really, or the crux of this episode, is exploring those origins and the significance of self-love. Also on the origins, but also what are some modern mental health trends when we look at self-love. And there are also found some interesting shifts in how these have evolved over the years. And really just that fine line between self-love and really not giving a beep about what other people think. So, and I also do have a nice little activity or practice for us to try. Just something simple, but I'm actually excited to get into that. I really just thought of it while I was jogging the other day, and as I was actually jogging, I was doing the exercise. I thought, this is actually such a nice exercise or practice that we could try here on our podcast together. So, first, let's look into how self-love has evolved. I'm not going to touch on too much here. I think I'm just going to touch on a couple of philosophies that have stood out for me. So in ancient Greek philosophy, there is Aristotle's eudaimonia, and virtue ethics. So Aristotle argued that self-love, and I don't know what the name of the concept is, but philautia. So that's the concept of self-love. It is essential to achieving eudaimonia, and that means a flourishing, fulfilling life. So for all our philosophers out there or people who really are interested in history, that has actually been argued that self-love is essential self-love is essential to achieving a fulfilling life. How beautiful is that? Then he also distinguished between noble self-love, which leads to virtue and moral excellence, and then selfishness, which is obviously excessive and helpful. So very often we think saying no to everything and setting boundaries, and we'll touch on that on modern trends, but many times we think just saying no to everything and having that don't care type of attitude and all spicy and sassy is self-love. In fact, that is a result of self-loathing, but I'm not going to go into that too much. So there is a fine line between, like Aristotle is distinguishing between noble self-love, which leads to virtue and moral excellence, and then there's selfishness as well, where you don't do anything for anybody, you don't show up for anybody, you are not helpful, you are just a bitter person. I think it's very important that this is not the objective of this podcast. I don't want anybody to get into a space of where they don't help anyone, where they're not humble and where they lack humility as well. This is not, in fact, we could touch even on a lot of things like what self-love is not, and it's definitely not being all sassy and saying no to everything and everyone and being all up in people's faces, telling them to jump off the nearest cliff, that type of thing. That is what self-love is not, and this is not obviously the objective of this podcast. Where this podcast birthed from is really the essence of the suffering that we are going through as a human race, the suffering that that self-induced suffering that, oh, woe is me, and life is not all as it seemed, and I'm such a terrible person, and I'm of no help to anybody, those types of things, where there's such a lot of suffering and pain that we go through. Oh, because I've been bullied from the age of 5 or 6, or I've been called an abomination, whatever the case is, that like I said, that goes into adulthood, where we can't say no to people, where we can't stand up for ourselves, where we are a walkover, for instance, or it manifests in all of these things. But it is very critical to understand that the essence of this podcast is really for us to develop that self-love, that self-compassion, where we can talk kindly to ourselves, kindly and compassionately. Cool. Anyway, let me not harp on too much on Aristotle, but apologies. According to Aristotle, the best kind of self-love involves pursuing what is truly good for one's self, which also benefits society. I thought that was quite interesting. I always thought that self-love is a one-man show. It is individual, and which also benefits society. That's beautiful. I'm trying not to get into self-care, so there's a lot of things that I can talk about self-care, but anyway. Then there is Plato, if that is how you mention it, and he touches on, or they touch on, the soul's harmony. Plato believes that the love of oneself should not be based on physical desires. Oh my gosh, I've been thinking about this so much. Plato believed that love of oneself should not be based on physical desires, but on cultivating wisdom and inner harmony. I've been wanting to actually share this so strongly. The essence of self-love is not based on physical things. Oh my gosh, I am grateful for the fact that, look, you can be grateful for the fact that, a shoe looks good on you, or you really look good in this dress, for instance, or, oh my gosh, I love the way my hair looks. But again, these are physical things. When these things fade away, when we become old and frail one day, not to say that you can't look pretty and all of those things, but when when, for instance, you gain a little bit of weight, when the dress doesn't fit as nicely anymore, where the shoe doesn't get any compliments from other people. These things are so fleeting, it fades away. Be very careful of getting into that danger zone of being grateful for physical things, or things that, oh my gosh, I am on holiday, I'm actually a good person. It's very important to understand that when we start cultivating these things on a physical basis, we are going to become so attached to it. We're going to become so, we're going to value it so high that our identity is linked to this thing. The dress, for instance, my hair looking good, I'm getting compliments for the shoe that I'm wearing, and we equate that with who we are, our self-worth, and it's such a dangerous space to be in. I'm really not saying that we shouldn't be grateful for these things. It's so lovely when you buy yourself something at the shops and you really feel good in it. You actually look good in it. You're getting compliments. It's lovely. It's beautiful. But we become so dependent on it that when a parent stops calling, when a parent stops telling us nice things, that they love us and appreciate us and they're grateful for us, when the neighbor, stops greeting you, again, all of these external things that become so dependent on, it's such a dangerous space to be in, because when those things fade away, when those things fizzle out, then our self-worth also starts to fizzle out and fade away, So really, 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 please, such an important thing. We need to try and cultivate something from an inner perspective. Plato believed that love of oneself should not be based on physical desires, but on cultivating wisdom and inner harmony. In the Republic, he suggested that a well-ordered soul leads to true happiness, which requires self-awareness and self-discipline. That is so beautiful. So beautiful. If there's anything you take away from this episode today, is that cultivating self-love should not be based on the external, but on the internal. Please, 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 please. Let me see what else stands out. I found some really nice philosophies from a religious perspective. From an Eastern philosophy, there's Buddha. Buddhism teaches that self-love is about self-compassion, not self-centeredness. I can't stress that enough. When there's self-centeredness, we feel like the world revolves around us. We become entitled, we become judgmental. When things don't go our way, we throw tantrums. Whereas if self-love is about self-compassion and not self-centeredness, there is a softness to our energy. There is a softness and a humility in our approach. People want to be around us. People want to sit with us. People want to spend more time with us. Very, 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 very important. If you are struggling with self-centeredness, I think really just do a little bit of introspection there. What are something? I feel like self-centeredness, there's such a huge level of control, where you've got your grip on something. But when you start to let go and just breathe and you let go of the insistence, life can be so much more pleasurable. Life can be so much more sweeter. The metta, loving kindness meditation, touches on, this is still on Buddhism, encourages extending love to oneself before radiating it outward. True self-love is freeing oneself from suffering by practicing mindfulness, ethical living, and inner peace. Then some really cool stuff. Christianity teaches agape. I don't know if I'm saying it right. That's unconditional love, including love of oneself as a creation of God. How nice! In Hinduism, the self as the divine. In Hindu philosophy, self-love is connected to realizing the divine nature within. I think there were a couple of other religious philosophies, but yeah, you get the gist of it. When we speak historically, there are a lot of these train of thoughts that teaches us about the significance of self-love, but also not getting into that space of self-centeredness, which can be a very dangerous space to be in. Then, moving on to some of our modern mental health trends, and I'm just thinking about time. I don't want this podcast to be too long. I have read her book, if I'm not mistaken, The Mindful Path to Self-Compassion, Dr. Christine Neff or Neef. Christine defines self-compassion as treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. And I'm going to try and not get emotional here. But a very, very, very good friend of mine has been going through a difficult time recently. And, as we were discussing, the friend of mine said something like, I don't want the situation to get so bad that I need to go and live with somebody, something like that. And then my partner Larry posed the question, is that a bad thing for you to, want to go and live with somebody or with a friend? And he then responded with a couple of stuff. And then, I posed the question back at him. You would judge yourself so harshly for wanting to live, if you don't have a place to stay, that you would judge yourself so harshly. Yet, at the snap of a finger, you would open your door to somebody so compassionately and so quickly you wouldn't even think twice. If it were me, of course, in fact, I said that. If I needed a place to stay, you wouldn't judge me. You would open your door at the snap of a finger. Yet when you feel like if you needed a place to stay, you judge yourself so harshly. Gosh, we just broke down in that moment and we just cried. I think it is so important that the same kindness that we extend to others should be the exact same kindness, if not even more, that we extend to ourselves. We want to tend to people. When someone's having a bad day, we want to call them. When somebody has fallen in the street or physically hurt themselves, we'd want to help them. We'd want to pick them up and dust themselves off and is everything okay? Yet we don't do that for ourselves. When we end up in hospital, when we end up in a mental health institution, there is such, I don't know what's the word, taboo. There's, we think it's so taboo. We think we are weak. We think that something is wrong with us, innately wrong with us. Yet when it's somebody else, we'd want to take them a warm pudding. We'd want to take them some of our favorite snacks. We'd want to go and sit by their bedside and share laughter and joy and funny stories. Yet when we feel like we are not doing too good, that we are a failure, there's something just so crazily, insanely wrong with that image. Body positivity has been a movement as well in the last couple of years. Letting go of body shaming and stuff like that, which I think is beautiful. Then we have our girl Brené Brown speaking about vulnerability, shame, resilience. I've read a couple of her books and I think there's some beautiful things there. We've also seen recently setting boundaries and saying no has become a bit of a thing. I don't think our forefathers, our grandparents even know about just the mere essence of saying no and setting boundaries. I don't know. Personally, I haven't seen that with some of the older generation that I know, setting boundaries. Self-care is a form of self-love. Quick one here, and I think this is a nice segue into our little practice. Having this essence of self-care. Now with the recent heavy rains in Joburg or Gauteng, not heavy rains, but just non-stop rains, I have found it so cozy and so cute that I can actually light a candle, or a few candles in fact, when I am getting ready for the shower in the mornings. And some people may think, oh, all that effort. I want to light up my morning, I want to light up my evening, and really just ease into things. You have no idea what a difference it makes. Try it. I actually have a candle burning behind me right now. But try it. Incorporating these things where a lot of trends and TikTok trends are saying things like romanticizing your evening. Have a cup of tea when you get into bed. Do something nice for yourself. I think this is also a really nice segue into our little practice that I wanting to do, really practical exercise. So whatever you're doing, you can continue, it's fine. I think it's just something for us to just be more aware of. If you can find a still easy, peaceful place to sit, let's do it. And I think really try and get into it. Really feel the elements, feel the emotions as I guide. And I'm going to try and make it short and sweet. I'm not going to extend it too long. Cool. So as you sit quietly, just take a nice breath in. Nice deep breath out. Gosh, that's so helpful already. I'm just going to draw your attention to 3 spaces within the body. Just 3 for now, just for the sake of this exercise. Draw your attention to your face. Entire face. Is there a sense of lovability that you can feel on your face? Loving kindness that you can feel on the tip of your nose, on your cheeks. Sometimes we look in the mirror and look at all the imperfections, but in this moment, maybe just think to yourself, how loving are my cheeks? How loving is my nose? So beautiful. How loving are my lips, my eyes? All these parts of us we despise sometimes when we've taken a selfie or we look at photos and point out all of these flaws. It's so nasty to the body. But in this moment, just think about that lovability, that loving kindness. Just feel it, nurture it. And then move on to your heart space, just the center of your chest. Maybe put a hand on the chest area. And this is where the magic happens. This is the engine of your love, your lovability. Maybe just caress it also a little bit. We are easy, we are quick to tend to a child that has fallen and that have hurt themselves. But in this moment, don't you want to nurture yourself a little bit? Nurture your lovability. Feel it. You are so lovable. Just feel the love emanating from your heart space. It's so beautiful. Maybe take a nice deep breath in. You are so, so, so lovable by default. Do you know that? By default. Then something that we take for granted are our legs. Feel the lovability in your legs. Your legs do so much for you. Your legs and your feet. They take you places. They make you do parkrun. Thank them. Feel the love in your legs. Feel the lovability. Feel the worthiness in your little toes. They do so much for you over the years, and we just never take the chance to thank them. Your legs are so lovable. Probably something you didn't think you would be doing today, did you? But like I mentioned, a beautiful, beautiful exercise that I was able to do while I was jogging. And it actually took me out of such an anxious space that I was in. Really, really anxious space that I was in. And it just brought me to the lovability, the lovable parts of my body. Okay. Quick story time. You know me with my stories. I'm not going to... Yeah, if I get emotional, that's fine. It's a safe space. But not too long ago, in fact, I had a very, I don't want to say difficult week, but I had a busy week. And I just felt anxious, and it was building up from the Monday into the Tuesday, into the Wednesday. It was just building up, and I had all of these moments of negative self-talk, which was so detrimental because it brought me more into a negative space, more into an anxious space. So there was just an evening later that week, we decided, you know what, let's do a breathwork exercise. We saw something on YouTube. It was about 30 minutes long, and I was really into it. Into the 15 minutes, I was feeling the breath work. Oh, I just felt a release. I think getting into 20 minutes into the breath work, 25 minutes. Oh my goodness. I just had a big release. Literally feelings of that I don't have to do anything for anyone. I don't have to be anything for anybody. There was just such a huge sense of relief in that moment. And the fact that I don't have to be anything for anyone doesn't make me less worthy. For the longest time, I felt like I needed to do something for someone for me to be more lovable. I think I shared in the previous episode. But that is just the furthest thing from the truth. We sometimes think because I send money back home, that's going to make me more lovable, and if I don't, it's going to make me less lovable. But if we start to get into this space of I am lovable by default, I'm worthy by default, literally, I don't have to do anything for me to be more lovable or less lovable. Yeah, and just in that moment, I just felt like such a relief. There was a weight lifted off my shoulder because I had this strong belief that my lovability, my worthiness was strongly linked to what I can give to people, what I can do for people, what I can be for people. And how tiring is that? I'm 33 years old, almost turning 34, but the fact that all my life I felt like I had to be something for someone all the time, and it becomes so draining and exhausting that I forget my worthiness. I forget to do stuff for me. I forget to make myself a cup of tea. I forget to give myself a gift and actually wrap it up. So, yeah. On that sober note, beautiful people, we've come to the end of this chapter. Something that I really want us to start doing is doing little exercises, whether it be working, like getting a worksheet, a workbook together for us to start journaling about things and really start to uncover something that might be very difficult for many of us, and I'm going to do it also. try and come up with 10 things. Take a page out of your journal or write it in your journal. 10 things that you are grateful for yourself. It won't be easy. It might be easy for some of you, it might not be. But think 10 things that you are grateful for yourself, for you, just you. Try and steer away from those physical things like I mentioned. Look, you can be very grateful for the shape of your face, your nose, any of those things. It's fine. But try not to harper too much on the fact that you've got a car, Try and steer away from that. And I think that's what's going to make it difficult, because we sometimes would say things like, I'm grateful for my cell phone, I'm grateful for my PS5, stuff like that. Bit of a challenge. And if you can come up with more than 10, that's fine. Do it. Stunning, fabulous. But try and come up with 10 things that you are grateful for yourself. And I don't know where we're going to convene and share these things, but it's more of an exercise for yourself. And please, please, please try and do that practical exercise of feeling that lovability, feeling that worthiness, feeling that loving kindness in the heart space, your forehead, your cheeks. I'm actually thinking now, the first thing that I'm going to write in my journal, something that I'm grateful for, is the way that I say "are." Okay, now I've got 9 things to go. So let's do it, people. I just want to say I'm so grateful for this podcast. I'm so grateful that we are on this journey together. As much love that I have within me, I'm sharing that with you. That's it. Lots of love, and we will see each other in episode 3. I can't wait. Let me just quickly get out my notes just to say what you can expect in episode 3. Quickly. I think this is going to be a tough one. Episode 3 is touching on unpacking societal pressures that hinder self-love. We are going to talk about family. We are going to talk about neighborhoods, your community. We are going to talk about how we have to show up at work, at the office, being so tied up with literally a tie. Oh my goodness. I've got a very interesting story there to share about how I showed up to work one day and I got looks, guys. I got looks, ugly looks, just for a shirt. But more that we'll share more of that in the next episode. So episode 3 will be called Shameless, Breaking Free from Societal Expectation. I've got another story that I'm actually thinking of, but I'm going to share it in the next one. Lots of love. Have a beautiful, beautiful day further. And don't forget your 10 journal prompts, what you're grateful for yourself, and doing that lovability practical